Helen, I suppose the first thing I'd love to ask you is I know that your first contact, I think, with the Sister St. Louis was you actually went to the class, the primary school in Monaghan. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe if you could tell me a little bit about what that was like arriving. You arrived in sixth class, your last year of primary school before you moved to the secondary school. Maybe just
That's
tell me
right.
a little bit about your memories, the sisters that you came across, who taught you, that type of thing.
Mm. So we had moved when I was due to come into sixth class. We had moved house.
Hmm.
So my first morning in St. Louis Primary School was I was met by Sister Mary Josephine. So she
Hmm.
was the principal at the time, and she waited until all the classes had settled, and then she took me to Sister Maureen Redmond's classroom. And I was pretty petrified. I
Yeah.
have to say that. I have to say that.
It's hard, I think,
Um,
being a sixth class pupil when everybody you're going to class where probably everybody's known each other for a few years.
That's
So
right.
it's
And all very
intimidating.
settled. That's
Yes,
right. All
yeah.
very settled. And so I was very, very shy. And when we went through the door and Sister Mary Josephine was introducing me to Sister Maureen Redmond, I had the head as low down as you could get. All I could see was Sister Maureen's well polished black shoes laced up with a lovely dainty heel. And I actually don't even think I got as far as the hem of her skirt. I was so shy. And it was all very daunting. Even for this to be sixth class of, students all around the same age, I didn't even come from a classroom from second class to sixth class that had so many in the classroom. So everything looked very, very different. But um, Sister Maureen gave me my space, gave me my time, gave enough. She made it manageable for me, and gradually she pulled up my confidence. And it was a really, really good year. It was a very structured day. It's not what I was used to before. I came from a really good, really, really good country school where I learned an awful lot, but this was different, and it was different in so many respects. Um, there weren't that many sisters that I remember in the school at the time. Sister Veronica Murray would have been next door to
Mm,
Sister Murray Redmond, and Sister Mary Josephine was the principal, but I don't actually remember any other sisters
okay.
in the primary school at that time.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there, I think at that stage, probably obviously when you were going to school, there was that move from, because obviously the secondary school I went to in Dublin was the same. But when my primary school was all lay teachers, but my secondary school was Holy Faith Sisters.
Yes.
And same thing, probably there was maybe three Holy Faith nuns by the time I arrived at secondary school. It was mostly lay. Um,
When I came to secondary school, I saw there was a lot more sisters,
right.
a lot more
Okay.
sisters. So, yes, but for me to see three sisters in one school was enough at that
Okay.
time.
Because your primary school probably had none.
Oh, none.
The one prior to that, yeah. Okay, okay.
Yes,
That
it
was
would have
very
been
changing.
the master and the mistress, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tell me, what was it like then arriving at a school where there was sisters, there was nuns? Did it feel very different, or was it just like in terms of how they handle, say, discipline or education, or did it feel much different from your other primary school?
I suppose the thought of going into it was
Yeah.
much worse than when you were actually there. No, I found it very relaxed,
Oh,
really.
great.
I found
Yeah.
it, you were very busy, and as I say, there was quite a structure to the day, but there was no drama.
Yeah.
I found it very peaceful
Yeah.
and fun
Yeah.
and
Great.
fun as well.
And what was secondary school like? Was there much difference then moving from the primary school the year you were there into the St. Louis Secondary School?
Oh, it was very much. Well, when when the time come for the decision for me to go to whichever school was going to be available to me in Monaghan town, it was Sister Maureen Redmond who actually encouraged my parents to send me to the St. Louis Secondary School, and it was wonderful. It really was. I when I went into the secondary school, it was like entering a world of academia.
Wow.
You know, the panelled walls, the lovely library, um, the laboratories, this heavy smell of chemicals in the laboratories, the botanical prints on the walls. It really was like a university. It had
Right.
that sense of stateliness, and it was very different because coming from the primary school, which was a pretty new primary school at that time, so everything was very sleek, and but this was going into a very old-fashioned, but a lovely environment to learn. And I believe that it gave me the a real love of learning. I can't say I was a top honor student by any means, but the environment, the 6 years that I was there, it really gave me such a wonderful need in myself
Mm.
to learn new things.
That's great. Gosh, to foster a love of learning, it doesn't matter, I suppose how intelligent or unintelligent or just to foster that love of learning is a wonderful gift for the sisters to, to give to their students. It's a great legacy. Can you remember the sisters in the secondary school, or what sisters
Oh
did you have
yes,
for any particular subjects or anything like that?
I can remember the sister Therese was my principal, was my
Mhm.
first principal. So the other sisters that were there, Sister Ann Jordan, Sister Ann Matthews, Sister Tria, Sister Mary Victoire, Sister Marie Flanagan, and Sister Noreen Murphy, Sister Brigida.
Oh
I had
wow.
a lot of sisters. I was
Uh,
very, very fortunate.
And did they all teach you or?
Yes,
Oh wow.
throughout my time, yes.
So,
Mm.
am I allowed to ask you what was your favorite subject?
I
And what
love,
teacher
I
taught you that subject?
well, that was a lay person, yeah. I love science and math. I really got a real joy of learning science and maths. I find it easier to learn than maybe some other subjects.
Mhm.
Um, and for the love of learning that I came out of the convent with, I when I got the chance to have my third level education,
Mhm.
with a degree and a master's, I did it through the Open University in my 30s.
Wow.
So that love of learning, it held with me for such a long time,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it gave me, I think more than anything, it gave me confidence in my ability to learn.
Fantastic.
I
I
think
think in
that's what it
particular when you
was.
do something like an open university degree, it takes so much self-motivation and discipline
Yeah.
because you're not going to a lecture. Everything's done,
Yes.
on your own motivation. So again, I suppose, as you said, just that love of learning, I think it'd be very, I did traditional university. I didn't do open university. And I was always in awe of anybody who did an open university degree because I'm not sure I would have had the self-discipline or the motivation to see it out.
Mm.
And I think that comes from a good grounding in education.
I think what the benefit of as well was that when I was in the secondary school, you when you made the effort to learn what you needed to learn, you were assessed, you were examined, you weren't given homework that was never checked.
Hmm.
So you always associated then, if I make the effort, I will achieve. And
Hmm.
that was steady throughout.
Yeah.
And then I knew that when it came to the bit where I wanted to go off and do a science degree, that I knew, well, if I put in the effort, um, this will work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was solid with that.
Yeah.
I have no doubts about that. But
Yeah.
I did get that from the sisters. The sisters, and I can see it even here now as well. The sisters have a quiet, steady approach to work.
Hmm.
And what they take on board and provide for you as an environment that you step in line with,
Hmm.
um, is priceless,
Hmm.
because they are taking you along in their quiet way,
Yes. Okay.
and
So,
it's
yeah. So, I mean, I suppose that brings me on to my next question. You are actually have been working with the Sisters in St. Louis for approximately the last 5 years
that's
as
right.
the manager of care and administration in
That's
Monaghan
right.
and Carrickmacross
And Dundalk when the
and
sisters moved.
Dundalk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you arrived during COVID, which was
I
something.
arrived. I'd say I was here about 4 weeks when
COVID.
the news of COVID started to filter through on the
Wow.
national. Yeah.
You're certainly thrown in at the deep end anyway.
It's from the beginning. I was of the impression, probably many others were, this was just going to be a bad flu,
Yeah.
and when we would have our community meeting, really we were stocking up on strepsils and honey and lemon and tissues. We
Hmm.
really just did think that this would be something that would come and go within a fortnight,
Yeah, yeah, like
um,
everybody. Yeah.
like everybody else, and that was not to be the case.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how was it? I mean, I know, I suppose our perception at the beginning and the reality they became two totally different things. What was it like, I suppose, arriving into a situation where you were having to look after a community of people that, many of them are very vulnerable, from a health perspective. How was that for you? And I guess, just in terms of your relationship with the sisters and things like that, I presume it probably became quite an extraordinarily strong bond because of the responsibility you had towards the sisters, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, oh, very much so. Um, you know, sisters in a community thrive on contact.
Hmm.
And it became quite clear, with as the language was upgraded each time with the national news of this wave that was coming, and gatherings were not encouraged.
Hmm.
And we had the national guidelines, as all houses had families everywhere. But applying that to the convent wasn't as straightforward as it should have been or could have been.
Hmm.
Uh, it was a constant negotiation all the time. It was, sometimes, you'd have conversations with the sisters and you think, well, okay, this is the way we'll go forward. But it, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for them. It wasn't, even though sisters say, yes, we understand that, but we will be having the retreat, won't we?
Yeah.
Or appointments started to be cancelled, shops started to close, the level of distraction started to go down a lot.
Mm.
Sisters were very lucky here to have the grounds,
Yes.
as were the staff,
Yeah.
to be able to go out and to enjoy that little bit of time. But it was extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
And then when we actually had an outbreak, that really moved into a different gear altogether.
And could you tell us a little bit about that? I actually wasn't aware that there was an outbreak in the
Yes,
moment.
yeah, we had an outbreak. So through contact tracing,
Hmm.
it was on a Monday afternoon, through contact tracing, I got a call from the public health authority.
Yeah.
And I, I have to say, and I've said this, many's a person will hear me saying this, I practically melted into my seat. Um, they were coming with their facts, and they were they were on a learning curve as well, because
Yeah.
they were not used to speaking with an administrator, dealing
Hmm.
with vulnerable adults
Hmm.
who now were in a very risky situation. They were more used to dealing with clinical nurse managers and directors of nursing in nursing homes and hospitals. And so they spent a lot of time bringing myself up to speed,
Hmm.
of what actually was now going to be required. And even though we were not of the category of nursing homes and hospitals, we still had to achieve the best outcome.
Yes, absolutely.
Um,
And when that outbreak happened, did each of the sisters then have to kind of self-isolate in their rooms, or I mean, because they were like considered what was called the bubble at the time.
yeah, no, had to be isolating to the rooms. I
That's
remember
really,
a call I had with the GP in the first instance, and she had said to me, "Helen, now everybody has to stay in their rooms." And I said, "Well, actually, that's not going to work here.
mm,
That's not going to work." She says, "Helen, it has to. This is going to run through the house, and this is the way it has to be." And so we had to figure a way of managing meals, managing facilities. Um, it was a total turnaround of everything that was normal up until that point, and
mm.
for what the sisters needed and thrived on.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't just new rules as such. This is
yeah,
what sisters needed.
yeah,
So the Department of Public Health, the HSE, our own SSL management team, everybody was into a new line of understanding, and the
yeah.
support that came with it
Hmm.
was extraordinary. First of all, with the professionals who we were dealing with, calls 3 times a day. How are things today? Sometimes you get a call at 8:30 in the morning to say, is everybody all right today? And I was thinking, they're still sleeping. I'm not going to waken them. They're still sleeping. But their stark reality of when they asked those questions every day, and they kept with us because we went into double incubation. They they kept with us throughout, and so that support was frightening of
Yeah.
what you were hearing and what you were asked, because you knew what they were expecting.
Yeah.
But it was very supportive at the same
Yeah.
time. So
And
they provided online training for us because they couldn't give us the PPE until we had the training done. Total and utter support. Extra support over bank holiday weekends, and tell us exactly what we needed to have done. But what I found really, what stood out an awful lot during that time, from the very first few days of the isolation, was calls from other sisters in the region
to see
who
how everybody
were
was.
just calling to say how, yeah, how, please, let us know if there's anything we can do. They'd send cards, just say your thoughts and prayers. It was amazing. It
Wow.
was just
Just the
amazing.
outpouring
And
of
it was so
support.
heartfelt. Oh, it was fabulous. It really was. Because
Yeah.
everybody in the country was going through their own version of COVID.
Yes.
And no
Yeah.
matter what version you were in, whether you were in an outbreak or whether it was just that the national news was getting worse, everybody was in a level of anxiousness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody had to look to themselves and their practices, and how they did things, and how they went and did their shopping. And, but in the middle of all of that, sisters were calling here to
Yeah.
say that they were with us every step of the way.
Wow.
It was just, it was fantastic.
It's like a
It
bad
really,
dream, really, isn't it? It's almost hard to believe it actually happened.
I
That's
think,
certainly my
yeah,
my feeling about it anyway. It's
yeah,
just
that's
I
true.
pinch myself and kind of go, did that really happen? But
That's
thank
true.
God anyway, you all got through it.
We did. We
Yeah,
did indeed,
yeah,
with a lot of support on every day. In fact, the day that we were due to have the outbreak lifted, you have to wait on this formal letter to say your outbreak is lifted, was the day we were due to have the first vaccinations. So
right.
that night before was an anxious night to think that I hope that nothing has happened that
Yeah,
will prevent us getting the vaccination, because the vaccinations were the first sign of hope and relief.
yeah. And of
And
course, you couldn't be vaccinated if you had COVID. That was
no,
the thing.
no,
Oh,
this,
yeah.
that's,
I've
and
forgotten all these things.
this is it, and
Yeah,
when it's all
yeah,
over, you do
yeah,
realize what everyone actually has come
yeah,
through. And because um, we had to go to a centre on the other side of town,
yeah.
and of course, sisters had to travel as individuals.
Hmm.
So the civil defence actually helped us to do that.
Mm.
So there were ambulances that were brought, and sisters were brought up individually. Um, and brought back. Initially, I thought, how is this going to work? This is real disturbance, but
Yeah,
it added a bit of novelty to the
yeah,
day,
yeah,
and we had that in a number of occasions after it. So, yeah, there was many a good thing to be had from it as
yes,
well.
yes. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in good things always come out of bad. I mean, the one thing certainly from my experience was just as you said,
Yes.
sense of community and support, because everybody was having a horrible time, but just some people it was just much more
Oh,
challenging.
even though, yes, we had that strong sense of community, it certainly wasn't easy. And,
No.
we all had our plain truths to tell
Mm-hmm.
during the time,
Hmm.
when no, we can't negotiate this part of it or
Yeah,
compromise this part of it. This is what we really have to do.
yeah,
Um, to see the sisters' faces, and for them to see our faces as
yeah.
well, of what it's not what we were here to do in the first place.
No, no, no.
you know.
Uh,
But everybody held on to their authentic selves, and when it was over, or a lot of it was over, sisters would say, "We didn't want to do it. You made us do it. We didn't want to do it, and we are grateful now."
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
thought, well, thank God. Well, I think the only thing that really kept this going throughout was the constant direction of
Hmm.
the HSE and the public health support to say, "This is what you have to do."
Yeah.
So it was tough times, and thank God, yes,
Yeah.
everybody came out very well from it.
So
And
that dominated your probably nearly, I'd say, your first couple of years working at the convent, I would imagine, probably
it
close
did
to the
very
first.
much so, because
Yeah.
I came in the month of February. I
Hmm.
never had experienced retreats,
Hmm.
celebrations like jubilees. families coming to visit sisters,
Mm,
and sisters going on holidays.
mm.
I'd never experienced that really for probably the first 18 months, 2 years.
Wow. So I suppose when the first of those types of celebrations resumed, it must have
Yes,
felt fantastic from your point of view
it
because
was
you'd heard
fantastic.
all the sisters talking about these things that they were missing.
That's right.
So
Yes.
in a way, like that's a little bit of the good comes out of the bad. Like say if you had gone in ordinary, circumstances,
Mm.
that would have been just a normal part of your sort of day to day, facilitating a Jubilee celebration or, visitors coming to the convent or whatever. So I suppose when it actually resumed, it must have been wonderful for you.
Well, it was like starting the job all over again.
Yeah, yeah,
It was like a brand new start,
yeah,
and I had to know how to learn how to do these things
yeah, of
as well.
course. Yeah,
But yes, it was a total it was like a refreshment really for
yeah, yeah. And
and
obviously, go ahead. Sorry.
and sisters were also viewing them differently as well, that, but they were coming forward tentatively. I have to say, that when we were in isolation, sisters had courage,
Yes.
a lot of courage and a lot of spirit. But when we had come over a certain amount of this, we were all quite tentative in how we moved forward,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
watchful and mindful of each other.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I think it knocked everybody's confidence, even when we were told that, it was more or less business as usual. I think people were very cautious for a while, definitely. Um, I suppose obviously if I was to ask you what was your most challenging memories, I'm sure it was COVID. I couldn't imagine there being too much more challenging. What would you say is your fondest memories in the last 5 years?
Well, I think, I think the fondest memories are just spending the time with the sisters
Hmm.
on a daily basis, having a cup of tea with sisters, listening to their view on life and living.
Hmm.
They are strong, independently minded sisters,
Hmm.
and I think, really little scares them.
Hmm.
They have a huge amount of courage, and they have lived such fascinating lives,
Hmm.
and with the humility that they don't even fully realize, I
Yeah,
believe, the fascinating lives they've had.
yeah,
When I would look at others that I know of their generation, you know, oh my goodness, such full lives, and they
yeah,
share it. You know,
yeah.
you know,
Yes.
and I think that's my fondest memories of all of those things knitting into the day, your daily work. I've never had a long day here,
Yeah.
um, because you've got those little interjections coming in the middle of your paperwork and your appointments and different things like that. But they have made it, for me, a wonderful memory.
Oh, that's
Wonderful
fantastic.
memory.
And I'd say there's never a dull day by the sounds of things.
No.
Yeah. I suppose my last question would be what do you think you'll miss the most about working with the sisters?
I think really when you witness in the house, and with the sisters who live outside the house and in the region, human kindness, and how they're so encouraging of everyone,
Hmm.
and their wisdom.
Yeah.
And this comes through in the bits of the conversations, how they support you. And when you actually watch, tact and diplomacy at its best,
Hmm.
where it's coming from a place of love,
Mm.
it's just the sense of peace and safety that provides.
Hmm.
And that is coming in and out of everything that happens in the house.
Hmm.
You know, the good days, the not so great days, it's still there though,
Hmm.
and there's something about the fabric of all of that once I leave, that is gone.
Yeah.
That is a definite. That'll not be recovered,
Yeah.
or it'll not be diluted either.
Mm.
That's just something that it's it's it has been a steep learning curve to be working here,
Hmm.
but that makes it all the more of the privilege that it was.
Yeah.
And I'll always be so grateful to Sister Rooney Clark and Sister Anne Jordan, who gave me the opportunity to actually step alongside the sisters for the last 5 years.
That's beautiful words. You have me very
I'm going
emotional.
to cry now.
That's such lovely words.
What
Seriously, I
did
don't know what to say. You've just spoken so beautifully about the sisters. You know, I obviously work for the central leadership team, and I've been working for them, for gosh, nearly 15 years at this stage. And people ask me, what is it about the sisters working for them? Because I have a very varied, professional career, and like it's the longest I've stayed anywhere, and I'm not planning to go anywhere soon. And for me, I feel so valued and appreciated as an
yes,
employee.
yes,
And the
yeah,
sisters are all so nice to me, and like everything you said, just the cups of teas and the beautiful stories I hear, and the strong women that
yeah.
I've met all
Oh,
the way. It's just wonderful.
I think, when you mentioned the challenges maybe wasn't so much COVID, but it's the conversations we had to have during COVID.
Right.
I think that's where the challenges lay. Sister Canis Dorkin was here when I first came here, and she is with us still in spirit. There is no doubt about that. But Sister Canis every Monday morning would come and say, "Welcome on board." And even though Canis is no longer with us, the sisters still welcome me every Monday morning.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
And it is just, and that's how those wonderful memories stay as current and live,
Hmm.
because what the sisters have had, they've never let go. They
Hmm.
they hold that on, all of the good aspects of what they've always had, and they've built on it, and it just shines through.
Yeah. I mean, certainly they definitely live their cars in St. Unum. There's no doubt.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
It's
and they
just,
share it.
yes.
That's the one thing. Coming in, it must have been a huge adjustment for
Yeah.
sisters, for a lay person to be coming in as the manager into the convent. But they shared every step of the way.
Hmm.
They held nothing back. And,
Hmm.
and I have benefited from that hugely. And I hope that I will see life going forward through the same lens that they do. And that,
Hmm.
that will help me in my years to come as well.
Yeah. And it's a lovely legacy they're leaving in
Um,
Monaghan. Yeah.
yeah,
Because I've spoken to Colm the gardener earlier, as you know, and he had very similar words, just so much appreciation, and felt it was such a privilege to have worked for the sisters.
yes.
And though they may be moving geographically, I don't think they'll ever leave, their spirit will never leave Monaghan by the sounds of
No,
things.
no.
So
And
yeah,
I've seen that with sisters who have passed away from here in the convent, and you can still feel their essence in your head.
yes, yeah. I think we'll leave it on that note. I think that's just lovely words. Helen, thank you so much.